Hey dreamer, tonight you're heading back in time to a world where sportsmanship meant broken ribs, missing teeth, and a bear judging you from the bleachers. Where the rules were unclear, the stakes were absurd, and the concept of health insurance was mostly just not dying. This is not your neighbour's weekend rugby match. This is the medieval tournament field, where fun and permanent injury were the same event. Before we tumble into this medieval madness, I'm going to ask you for a favour. Leave a like and hit that subscribe button. That way you're helping this channel more than you think. You're part of what keeps these videos going, so thank you for that. And I'm curious, where are you listening from? And what is your favourite history topic? Now dim those lights, maybe fluff your pillow, pull up your blanket. Tonight you'll fall asleep in peace, which is more than we can say for anyone playing medieval sports. Have you ever wondered what sports they played in medieval times? Have you ever wondered how many injuries it takes before a sport becomes illegal or a tradition? Can it really be called a sport if multiple people leave on a stretcher? And when exactly did the goat become captain of the team? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 1326 and it's the village tournament day. Something smells like smoke and boiled onions, and someone is already shouting something about teams. Somehow they've put your name on the list. Good luck. The tournament doesn't begin with a trumpet or a flag, but with a loud argument about last year's mud wrestling scandal and a goat that keeps trying to bite you behind the knee. You hear a loud voice. No one knows what he's saying. Several chickens scatter and a man lights something on fire that shouldn't be. The games have begun. You're not even sure where to stand. A crowd has gathered in a crooked circle around what might be the tournament field, or possibly just someone's vegetable patch. The lines between official events and chaotic accidents are already blurry. One man in a tunic is selling pickled eggs from a bucket. Another is selling lucky chicken feathers that may or may not still be attached to the chickens. You're not from this village, which becomes obvious every time someone looks at your shoes and then whispers to their neighbour. The goat remains a problem. It has fixated on you with the blank intensity of something that knows what you did in a past life. It's not even a large goat, but it's unnaturally nimble and very committed to nibbling your limbs. You try to sidestep it. It sidesteps with you. You move behind a barrel. The goat climbs on the barrel. A child nearby points and laughs. In the centre of the chaos, the mayor stands atop an overturned washtub trying to give a speech. His hat is too big for his head, and his voice is too small for the crowd. You catch only fragments. Words like glory, tradition, and try not to kill anyone float through the air between shouts and livestock noises. The applause comes 5 seconds late and is mostly sarcastic. A man in a stained cloak approaches and informs you that you've been registered for multiple events. You inform him that you never signed up. He shrugs and hands you a wooden token anyway. It smells faintly of vinegar and terror. Someone behind you offers to trade you their event for yours in Bladderball. You decline on instinct. Suddenly a bagpipe wails from somewhere behind a tent and startles the crowd into motion. A small parade begins. Children march with sticks. A woman waves a flag that looks suspiciously like a tablecloth. There are no musicians, only people humming different tunes while pretending they know the lyrics. One man twirls, trips, and lands directly on the goat. The goat is unfazed. You are swept into the mass of people moving toward the first competition. Someone hands you a small meat pie. Someone else steals it. A third person offers you a drink from a leather flask. You accept it without thinking. It tastes like something that used to be fruit and now wants revenge. The announcer yells the name of the first game, but it's swallowed by the crowd. You only catch the word ball and something that might have been violence. Then a large man throws his arms around you and yells, "Welcome to the team." You're not sure what team this is. You're not sure what sport this is. But now you're jogging across a field with 30 other people, some of whom are already bleeding. The goat is following you. You hear someone shout for a ball to be brought out. What arrives looks less like a ball and more like a curse in spherical form. It is leathery, swollen, and definitely used. You're told to run, because next up is the game of pig bladder ball, and it is not going to be gentle. You are forced into a game that is 1/3 soccer, 1/3 riot, and 1/3 bad idea. The ball is a pig bladder. The field is the village. The goal is unclear. People shove, trip, scream and dive with the full force of someone trying to impress their ex. You last 3 minutes before you're tackled into a cabbage cart. You come up gasping, clutching something green and wet. It is not your dignity. The pig bladder ball sails overhead as 10 men scream and run in the opposite direction, chasing it like it owes them money. You try to stand, but the cabbage juice has turned the ground into a slippery vegetable trap. A cart driver shouts something unintelligible in your direction, probably wishing you ill. You crawl out with the grace of a damp earthworm and rejoin the game, mostly by accident. There are no boundaries. The game spills through courtyards, side alleys, doorways, and once, dramatically, through someone's kitchen. The ball flies into shops and then out again, chased by men wielding sticks and single brain cells. It crashes through a wedding ceremony, knocks over a tiered pudding, and is briefly blessed by a confused priest before continuing its reign of chaos. At one point it lands in a soup pot and the entire midfield dives in after it. Someone emerges with the ball. Someone else emerges with scalding soup burns. Nobody wins. You witness a man trip over a chicken, land on a bucket, and get cheered as if he scored something. It is unclear what counts as points, but people are definitely keeping score based entirely on volume. A woman rings a bell every time someone falls down. You don't know why. You fall again just to test it. She rings it. You feel strangely proud. There are positions in the game, allegedly. You are what they call a floater, which seems to mean being tackled by strangers from both teams equally. The ball is light and bouncy, like a balloon made of regret and poor decisions. Every time someone kicks it, it changes direction. Every time you think you understand what's happening, a man in a vest made of spoons screams left flank, and you get hit in the ribs. You try to kick the ball once. You miss and hit someone's shin. They fall dramatically, clutching their leg, and accuse you of sorcery. A man with a wooden spoon declares you disqualified for breathing too hard. Someone else immediately reinstates you after sniffing your armpit and nodding solemnly. You do not ask questions. The goat appears again, watching from the sidelines with eerie judgment, chewing on what might be your sleeve. Midway through the match, the ball vanishes completely. There is a full minute of confused running, tackling, shouting, and what might be interpretive dance before someone realizes a small child has picked it up and is using it as a hat. The child is declared the interim champion and then bribed with a pie to give it back. You are tackled 3 more times by the same person who keeps calling you Jeff. That is not your name. Eventually you give up correcting him. You are Jeff now. Jeff who can't stay on his feet and smells faintly of turnips. The crowd loves you. You are cheered for falling, booed for standing, and celebrated when you accidentally headbutt someone into a fountain. You begin to understand the rules. There are none. Spectators are not safe either. One woman catches the ball and runs with it, screaming for her freedom. A man in a cloak tackles her into a turnip stall. The stall owner demands payment in the form of eggs. No one has eggs. An argument begins about bartering with pickles. You use the distraction to sit down behind a barrel and quietly reconsider your life choices. The game ends when the ball finally explodes. Literally explodes. Someone kicked it too hard and it bursts mid-air with a noise like a wet sneeze and a puff of questionable gas. There is silence. Then wild applause. You're declared a valiant floater and given half a meat pie and a handshake that smells like fermented onions. You can't feel your legs, but your spirit is violently awake. You think the worst is over. Then someone hands you a lance and points at a horse. Jousting is about to begin. The crowd gathers for jousting, which is essentially two armoured men riding full speed at each other with long wooden poles and decades of emotional repression. The first match ends in a flying lance, a dented helmet, and a dispute over whether the horse or the rider crossed the line first. Everyone claps politely as someone is carried away. You're seated on a wobbly bench that may once have been a door. The crowd around you murmurs with a mixture of reverence and bloodlust. Vendors walk by selling roasted apples, pickled turnips, and something described only as meatish. Someone offers you a betting slip and asks if you want to wager your boots. You politely decline. You do not trust these people with your boots. You do not even trust them with gravity. In the centre of the field, two knights prepare. Their armour is less shining and more dented, with scratches that suggest this is not their first attempt at unprovoked impact. One wears a faded red plume and what looks like half a curtain for a cape. The other wears black and glares like a man whose therapist told him to journal, and instead he picked up a lance. The horses are the only sane ones here. One of them sighs deeply. The other eyes the crowd like it's preparing an exit strategy. Both know what is about to happen is very stupid. The horn sounds. The two riders charge, lances raised. The ground shakes beneath their hooves. The crowd holds its breath. And then the two men collide like angry shopping carts. One lance splinters dramatically. The other misses completely and embeds itself into a nearby ale barrel, which begins to leak joyously into the grass. The knight in red is knocked backwards. Not just off the horse, he sails briefly through the air and lands in what might once have been a shrub. He gives a thumbs up. The crowd cheers. He does not get up. The black-clad knight is declared the winner and immediately begins flexing for the audience. He removes his helmet, revealing a haircut that implies bad decisions and possibly a loot addiction. Someone throws a flower. Someone else throws a small onion. Both are caught with style. Now it is your turn. You are told this is an audience participation round. You argue. They ignore you. Within minutes you are being strapped into a set of armour that smells like wet coins and inherited trauma. The helmet is too big, the gloves are too small, the horse looks at you and exhales in a way that suggests deep disappointment. You are handed a lance. It is heavy, it is splintery. You're assured it is probably safe. A child throws you a thumbs up. A man offers to pray for you. The horn sounds before you can say no. The horse starts moving, slowly, with reluctance, like it has done this before and does not support your life choices. You wobble in the saddle, squinting through the helmet's slit as your opponent approaches. You cannot see clearly. You cannot breathe easily. You're riding a half-ton beast while holding a giant stick and screaming internally. The moment of impact arrives, except you miss entirely. Your lance scrapes past the other rider. His lance whacks your helmet with the subtlety of a frying pan. Your ears ring. Your balance shifts. You slide off the horse sideways like a sack of regret. The crowd gasps, then cheers. A monk waves a flag. A drunk man offers you a radish. You are declared most graceful dismount and awarded a commemorative splinter. As you're helped off the field, someone pats your back and says, "You did better than Jeff last year." You don't ask who Jeff was. You suspect he was buried in this very field. You're returned to the sidelines and given a mead-soaked cloth for your face. Then someone shouts for the pig to be released. That's not a metaphor. The next game is about to begin. The rules are simple. Catch the pig. You won't catch the pig. Nobody catches the pig. Covered in something oily and furious, the pig slides between legs, knocks over children, and somehow ends up on a roof. A man dives for it and lands in a trough. You give up and pretend you were just spectating. It all starts when a farmer in a hat made of chicken feathers appears in the middle of the field, holding a squealing, glistening piglet. He announces in a voice louder than necessary that this pig is named Lady Gwendolen and that she's been greased with a family recipe. No one asks what the recipe is. You do not want to know. You assume it involves at least one type of fat and possibly something fermented. The smell confirms it. Children cheer. Grown men stretch dramatically. One elderly woman removes her shawl and begins limbering up with the focus of a retired gladiator. You are gently pushed toward the group of contestants before you can explain that you have a deeply rooted fear of farm animals with ambition. Someone ties a ribbon around your arm and tells you that means you're Team Violet. You don't see any other team colours, which means this is either symbolic or a prank. The pig is placed on the ground. There is a tense silence. Then a horn sounds, the crowd roars, and the pig immediately bolts like it has seen the face of God and disagreed with it. You sprint after it on instinct, elbows flying, boots slipping. Within seconds you lose a shoe and most of your remaining self-respect. Lady Gwendolen is a blur. She shoots under carts, between legs, over baskets, and somehow scales a stack of firewood like a four-legged squirrel. Someone tries to grab her and ends up hugging another man. Someone else tries to block her path with a laundry basket. She jumps over it and bites the corner of his tunic on the way by. You attempt a tactical dive. It is not tactical. You land flat on your chest in what appears to be a puddle of ale, horse spit, and medieval regret. A man runs past you, slips, and slides directly into a group of jugglers. The jugglers do not break formation. True professionals. A child nearly catches the pig but is distracted by a dropped pie. The pig leaps over him and vanishes behind a barrel. You follow, breathless, only to discover she's somehow climbed onto the roof of a small food stall. How she got up there is a mystery. How she gets down is by launching herself directly into a basket of apples and continuing without pause. A legend. At one point the pig runs straight through the crowd and into a church. A bell rings. The priest runs out, waving his arms and yelling about unholy beasts. The pig returns, completely unbothered, now wearing a bit of curtain around her neck like a cape. Eventually the contestants begin to drop off one by one. Some give up. Some are limping. One man is still chasing a different pig entirely and has not noticed. You're on all fours behind a turnip stand, panting, when you hear someone shout that Lady Gwendolen has made it back to the pen voluntarily. She ends the game by walking calmly back into her enclosure and immediately lying down, triumphant. She is given a plum. She deserves it. You are declared a participant of notable spirit, and handed a small badge made of yarn and questionable intent. Your legs ache. Your elbows are bruised. Your pride has left your body entirely. But the pig lives on, oily and undefeated. Then the bell rings again. Archery is starting, and the targets are much closer to the tavern than they should be. A line of archers takes aim at wooden targets. Unfortunately, they're near the tavern. One misses and hits a hay cart, another hits a cow. A third aims directly at a pigeon and instead takes out someone's dinner plate. The smell of smoke wafts over. Someone applauds. It's unclear if they hit the target or just gave up. You arrive just in time to see a man fire an arrow into the side of a passing wheelbarrow. He cheers as if this was intentional. The man pushing the wheelbarrow does not. The archery range consists of several makeshift targets made from barrels, worn-out shields, and one upside-down door with the word "Nope" painted across it. The targets are swaying slightly in the breeze, which is being blamed for everything except the archer's skill. A dozen competitors stand in a crooked row, all at varying levels of confidence. Some wear gloves, some don't. One man uses a bow the size of a small tree branch and insists it was a gift from a druid. A woman with 6 arrows tucked into her hair mutters encouragement to her bow like it's a nervous child. The rules are shouted by an official who may or may not be sober. He has a clipboard. It's unclear why. The tavern sits directly behind the targets, as if daring fate to intervene. Someone has placed a barrel of mead dangerously close to the firing line. Someone else has parked a cart of straw beside it, and in the corner a bard with a harp is providing live commentary in rhyme, which helps no one and confuses most. Your name is suddenly called. You protest, but the bow is already being shoved into your hands. It smells like moss and effort. You're told to aim for the centre of the barrel. You can barely see the barrel. A child offers to hold your elbow for luck. You decline. The goat from earlier appears and bleats disapprovingly. You draw the bowstring back. It creaks ominously. You let the arrow fly. It sails majestically through the air, over the barrel, over the fence, and directly into a sack of flour outside the bakery. A white puff explodes upward. There is a brief silence. Then a baker runs out covered in flour and fury. You are politely disqualified for aesthetic disruption. Back at the line, someone attempts a trick shot by spinning in a circle first. The result is predictable and slightly bloody. Another archer fires his arrow into the sky. Nobody moves. Everyone just stares upward and waits. It comes down 10 seconds later into someone's hat. The hat survives. The pride does not. Then come the flaming arrows. This was not part of the original plan. A man with a confident smile and a bucket of pitch lights the tips of 3 arrows and yells something about tradition. He fires the first one directly into the tavern's hanging sign. The second one hits a barrel. The third, well, no one is entirely sure. But a thin trail of smoke begins to rise from behind a curtain. Shouts of fire go up. Someone throws a flagon of ale at it, which mostly just makes the fire drunk. Panic ensues. A group of villagers runs for buckets. One man removes his shirt and starts flapping it wildly. Another tries to reason with the fire like it's a disappointed relative. Eventually the flames are put out using a combination of dirt, beer, and threats. Surprisingly, the archery contest continues. You are given a consolation ribbon shaped like a bow. The goat tries to eat it. You let it. You've earned that much. As the field is cleared, the next event is announced. Wrestling. You are volunteered for the wrestling match. It takes place in a pit filled with water, dirt, and a thick layer of something suspiciously warm. Your opponent is named Garth and appears to be carved from cheese and rage. You lose before it begins. Someone throws you a towel. It's wet. The pit is less a regulation arena and more a glorified puddle with commitment issues. The mud is the wrong colour, a shade between gravy and regret. Steam rises from it gently, unnaturally. as if someone buried a kettle underneath for ambiance. A small sign reads, "No biting unless mutually agreed upon." You wonder briefly what life decisions brought you here, but it's too late. You've already taken your shoes off. Garth stands across from you, shirtless, flexing in a way that makes your shoulders flinch. His beard has its own weather system. His arms are the size of overconfident hams. A chant begins from the crowd. It is unclear whether they are cheering for you or demanding your swift defeat. A child points at you and says, "That one's going down." You nod in agreement. You step into the mud. It clings to you immediately, reaching up your legs like it wants to keep you forever. The texture is both lumpy and slick, the worst of both worlds. Your foot sinks. You try to lift it. It makes a sound like a soup giving up. Across the pit, Garth cracks his neck so loudly that 3 pigeons fly away. You assume this is not his first time. The referee is a man with 1 boot and a very loud bell. He explains the rules using hand gestures and ambiguous grunts. You catch phrases like 3 points for style, no poking, and the goat is not a legal weapon. You do not understand, but neither does anyone else. The bell rings. Your body is in the mud. You're not sure how you got there. You think you may have levitated for a moment. You're upside down and sideways. Someone in the crowd cheers. You think it's sarcastic. The mud seeps into places that should never experience nature. You feel older now, wiser, softer in the knees. You struggle upright and attempt a counter-move that involves vaguely lunging and hoping for divine intervention. Garth catches you mid-air like a bag of slightly damp flour and gently places you back in the mud with the elegance of a disappointed father at a church picnic. You try to grab his arm. It's like gripping a very greasy log. The crowd is delighted. Someone starts singing a ballad about your defeat in real time. You hear lyrics that include the words slippery and limp. A woman tosses you a flower. It hits you in the eye. Eventually, through a series of movements best described as undignified thrashing, you manage to tangle Garth's legs. He falls. The earth trembles. The goat, watching from the sidelines, bleats in surprise. You seize your moment and sit on Garth's back. He does not seem to notice. You are declared the winner purely because Garth got distracted by a meat pie someone waved near the pit. They hoist your arm in the air. You're covered in mud, glory, and something that smells faintly like onions. You are given a celebratory rag that someone claims is a towel. It is not dry. It is not clean, but it is yours. You limp away from the pit with the wobble of someone who just learned what their spine tastes like. A man pats your back and says, "You've earned a place in the feast tonight." You nod. It's time for the next event. A chained bear is brought out while a flute plays something disturbingly upbeat. Several dogs are released. You think this is awful until the bear stands up and chases a nobleman into a pastry stall. Somehow, this is considered peak entertainment. You try not to make eye contact with the bear or the flute. The whole thing starts with a trumpet made from something that might once have been a goat. The sound it makes is halfway between a honk and a nervous cough. A crowd gathers immediately, sensing violence or free snacks, or ideally both. Children perch on barrels. Old women unfold rickety stools with the grim focus of seasoned spectators. A vendor walks by selling festival sausages that smell like salted glue and existential risk. Someone asks if the tavern's still on fire. Nobody answers. You hear the words halftime entertainment, and your heart sinks a little. You've already seen a man eat a lit candle and a juggler get hit with an arrow. How much worse could it get? Enter Princess Mildred. The bear arrives with great ceremony, which is to say a man yells "bear" and promptly sprints off stage. Princess Mildred is enormous, covered in patchy fur, dried honey and contempt. Her eyes have seen things. A chain dangles loosely from her neck, attached to a wooden stake that looks like it was designed by someone who has never met physics. Her handler has one eye, 2 teeth, and a voice like spoiled gravy. He waves to the crowd and yells something about nature's elegance. Before tripping over a lute and disappearing behind a hay bale, the bear remains. Then the flute begins, an aggressively upbeat tune. Like the background music of a bar brawl in a children's puppet show, it's deeply unsettling. Just as you're beginning to wonder who wrote this score, they release the dogs. Not 1 or 2 dogs, a tactical swarm. At least 6 of them charge into the arena, barking, leaping, chasing tails, and thoroughly misjudging the situation. The bear blinks. 1 dog nips at her foot. She responds by rolling onto her back and flattening it like a pancake. The crowd cheers. You are appalled. No one else is. A man beside you is taking bets using dried beans as currency. Another shouts, "Put the juggler in next," and is not joking. The dogs are now running in circles, unsure whether they're in a fight or an interpretive dance. Princess Mildred casually swats one into a bucket. Then comes the moment. The bear rises to her full height, looming like a furry cathedral. The crowd gasps. A nobleman in a velvet doublet holding a plum tart the size of his head waves nervously. Mildred locks eyes with him, calmly rips the stake from the ground like a carrot, and barrels directly toward him. What follows is chaos wrapped in powdered sugar. The nobleman screams, the tart flies, people scatter like spilled beans. The bear crashes into the pastry stall with a sound like thunder and regret. Trays go flying. Eclairs achieve altitude. You catch a glimpse of the nobleman crawling beneath a trestle table, while a baker tries to defend him with a baguette. The bear emerges with an entire pie in her mouth, and the energy of someone who has just declared war on cutlery. Through it all, the flute does not stop playing. Eventually, a team of 3 men with nets, a rope, and a very large carrot manage to subdue Mildred. She is bribed into stillness with a suspiciously chunky bowl of honey, while a priest sprinkles something that might be holy water. The nobleman is rescued, coated in jam and trauma. The dogs are now barking at a wooden sign. The crowd erupts in applause. A woman tosses a turnip at the bear, misses and hits a juggler. The flute player takes a bow and immediately steps into a bucket. A child declares it the best show ever, and you are deeply worried for their future. Someone points toward a nearby hill, lifts a wheel of cheese, and the mood shifts from fear to reckless enthusiasm. The wheel of hard cheese is pushed down a steep hill. You and 10 others chase after it. The ground is uneven. Your legs betray you. It begins, like all terrible ideas, with someone yelling the word tradition and a drum roll on a bucket. A local official in a hat too large for his head solemnly holds up the cheese as if presenting a newborn. It is enormous, dense, potentially weaponized. You're told it is aged 3 years and considered sacred. You're also told it must be chaste. The connection between these 2 facts is never explained. You're lined up at the top of the hill alongside 10 other victims. Sorry, competitors. Some are barefoot. 1 is already bleeding. A man next to you mutters a prayer. Another tightens his belt like he's about to invade Normandy. A woman in a flower crown is stretching like this is a formal athletic event. Someone is holding a roasted chicken leg like a baton. You, meanwhile, are trying to mentally calculate how many teeth you're willing to lose for dairy-based glory. Then the cheese is released. It does not roll. It escapes. It careens forward with the enthusiasm of a cannonball and the dignity of a flying brick. The crowd roars. The line of runners stumbles forward like poorly trained ducks, and you are swept along with them. Gravity takes control. Your feet make decisions without you. The hill is not kind. It is patchy and unpredictable, with sudden dips, rocks the size of your self-doubt, and grass that becomes suspiciously slippery right where your balance gives out. You flail. You yell. You perform a mid-air somersault that is applauded by a child and deeply regretted by your spine. A woman screams something about her ankles. A man near you hits the ground and just rolls with it, muttering something about fate. Someone rolls past you sideways. Someone else is upside down, screaming the word lunch. A man flips entirely over a cart, yells, "I'm fine," and immediately rolls into a goose. The goose takes this personally. It joins the race. Another runner appears to be crawling, like he's storming a trench, muttering cheese-based revenge oaths. You make it halfway down before physics decides you've had enough. Your foot catches on a turnip. You achieve momentary flight. There is a strange, serene silence. You have never felt closer to the sky. Then you crash through a picnic blanket, land in someone's bowl of soup, and knock over a small table. Peasants applaud. The person whose soup you've entered stares at you with quiet betrayal. A spoon bounces off your head. Meanwhile, the cheese is nowhere to be seen. Some say it veered into the woods. Others say it achieved sentience and escaped. One man claims it hit a monk and was last seen bouncing toward the monastery. Nobody checks. Everyone is too busy trying to count their toes and check their teeth. A donkey walks through the finish line and is given a ribbon by accident. Somehow you are declared the winner. You don't remember standing up. A garland of wilting flowers is placed on your head. Someone hands you a ribbon that says first. It smells like goat. A bard begins composing a ballad about your journey, but gets distracted halfway through and starts singing about bread instead. Someone throws you a celebratory apple. You miss it completely. You're invited to give a victory speech. You decline, mostly because your jaw doesn't work anymore. A child offers you a lukewarm cider in celebration. You nod politely and immediately spill it on your shirt. The prize? You guessed it. Cheese. But not the one you chased. That one is gone forever. Instead, you're handed a smaller wheel that looks suspiciously like someone's footstool. You hold it aloft anyway, because tradition. The crowd claps. A pigeon lands on your shoulder. You accept it as part of your new life. As you limp away from the hill, clutching your consolation cheese and questioning your life choices, the sound of splintering wood cuts through the celebration. You turn to see the clergy setting up an axe-throwing booth beside the mead tent. Nothing spells trust in God like the local clergy organising a competitive axe-throwing event next to the mead tent. The targets are barrels. The results are chaos. One axe hits a tree. One hits a boot. One hits a man who claims he's fine but is clearly not fine. You quietly back away. The archdeacon, in full ecclesiastical robes layered under a stained leather apron, stands beaming with pride beside a wobbling table stacked with axes. His vestments are flapping in the breeze. His grin says spiritual leadership. His eyes say controlled chaos. Next to him, a visibly nervous altar boy named Crispin is handing out weapons with the quiet urgency of someone who is aware this will not end well. A large painted sign reads, He who strikes true shall receive divine favour. Beneath it, written in charcoal on a scrap of parchment, also a turnip. The line is long and made mostly of people who have recently exited the mead tent and are clearly hoping to re-enter with more dramatic stories. One man is hiccuping to the rhythm of his own internal song. Another is muttering tactics to his axe like it's a beloved warhorse. A woman in chainmail is telling the barrel, in a low and serious voice, that she knows its secrets. A child, possibly 8, clutches a scorebook and a quill as tall as himself, and appears to be making up numbers as he goes. You approach the altar of axe distribution and ask if there are any rules. Crispin blinks. The Archdeacon says, "Just faith," which is not comforting. You nod slowly and hope for divine protection, or at least adequate distance from the other contestants. The first thrower steps up, spins dramatically, and releases an axe that sails with surprising grace into the dirt 2 feet in front of the target. The crowd erupts. The Archdeacon yells, "Praise be." The second contestant is less graceful. Their axe ricochets off the ground, hits the barrel, and then lodges itself in the sign that says "No liability accepted." A third contestant hurls theirs so wildly it skims the edge of the mead tent, producing a scream and the sound of rapidly closing shutters. Then you're handed an axe. It is far heavier than expected and smells like it has both witnessed and caused emotional damage. You raise it with trembling arms. Your first attempt slips, drops straight onto your boot and bounces away. The Archdeacon gives you a sympathetic nod. You try again, this time managing a decent spin. The axe soars cleanly through the air, veers slightly left, and buries itself in the melon cart of a nearby vendor. The vendor does not blink. He simply drags the cart 1 pace to the right and continues slicing fruit. Back in the crowd, someone throws an axe so enthusiastically it somersaults high into the air and lands handle first like a divine signpost. A dog, possibly inspired, grabs another axe in its jaws and bolts through the crowd. Crispin chases it briefly, then gets stung by a bee and decides to lie down for a while. The volume of a contestant's battle cry seems directly proportional to how far off target their throw goes. One particularly confident man screams for the saints and spins himself in a circle before letting go. His axe lands in someone's lunch. A roast duck is tragically lost. A potato is not. The Archdeacon, clearly pleased by the spectacle if not the outcomes, announces that the winner is whoever hit the fewest people and the most metaphorical truths. A woman who dropped her axe immediately upon receiving it is declared victorious. She receives a turnip, a hand-carved ribbon, and what is referred to as blessed enlightenment, though she mostly looks confused and slightly damp. Just as someone begins juggling 3 axes and the crowd begins backing away out of habit, one of the axes is thrown directly upward and vanishes into the sky. No one ever sees it land. Everyone agrees not to speak of it again. As you retreat from the axe booth with all your limbs miraculously intact, someone behind you yells the word race. Without warning, you are shoved into a burlap sack. A whistle blows. Everyone hops forward like intoxicated frogs. You fall instantly, roll, and accidentally trip the baker, the blacksmith, and a visiting merchant. You cross the finish line on your face. Someone hands you a pickle. Apparently that's the prize. It started, like most things today, with shouting, a goat-related distraction, and no consent. 1 minute you're watching a man try to convince his livestock to wear a festive hat, and the next your legs are stuffed into a coarse sack that smells like ancient potatoes and fear. Someone yells "Go!" and the field instantly erupts in a thundering mess of airborne elbows and cloth-clad knees. You try to rise, but your sack is twisted and your left foot has decided to unionize. You hop once. You fall. The ground meets your face like an old friend with boundary issues. You tumble directly into a goose who honks in moral outrage and tries to peck your ear. The crowd cheers. It is unclear who they're supporting. To your left, the blacksmith is moving like a man possessed by the spirit of vengeance and oats. He bounds forward with alarming force, bellowing something motivational that ends in a wheeze. Behind him, the baker is hopping like his rent depends on it, swearing about flour rations and losing his hat. The merchant from Flanders is weeping quietly and has somehow achieved second place. You right yourself and attempt a controlled hop. The sack is too long. Your knees bang together with every movement. The ground is wet. The air smells like sweat, cabbage, and crushed dreams. You make it 5 feet before a child wearing a sash labelled Champion 1346 launches into your ribs. You both collapse. He laughs like this is his villain origin story. Someone tries to cheat by cutting leg holes into their sack, but is promptly tackled by 3 grandmothers wielding ladles. A man with a fake beard has replaced himself with a scarecrow. No one notices. A dog enters the race halfway through, steals someone's sack, and leads half the field off course into a barrel of pickled onions. At this point you are technically crawling. A woman yells that this is against the rules. A man in a tunic shouts that there are no rules. The announcer, who may also be drunk, declares both statements correct. A judge tries to intervene but falls into a puddle and begins reflecting on his life choices. With 7 feet to go, you gain momentum. Not through strength or skill, but through pure gravitational betrayal. You lose balance, topple forward, and slide the rest of the way in what can only be described as a burlap skid. You cross the finish line face first, dragging 2 other participants and a turnip. The whistle blows, confetti is thrown. You are declared the winner. You are handed a prize ribbon that is damp for reasons you do not question, and a lukewarm pickle that may or may not have been in someone's pocket. You nod in polite confusion as a lute player begins composing a victory song that rhymes glory with sack-based story. A child salutes you. The goose is still watching. Your sack is removed and thrown into a nearby pile marked mostly intact. The blacksmith is pacing and muttering about rigged competitions. The baker demands a rematch but is eating cake while doing so. The merchant is curled up on the grass, whispering never again. A woman is hopping in a circle for no reason. No one tries to stop her. You attempt to stand, only to realize your legs have forgotten how to function. You sit back down and quietly chew your pickle. It tastes like defeat and vinegar. As you sit in the grass recovering from the sack race with a bruised knee and a pickle you didn't ask for, a monk in sandals taps your shoulder. He smiles serenely, flexes like a heretic's nightmare, and invites you to test your strength against Brother Cedric. He looks peaceful, but he's not. He grips your hand like he's trying to extract confession by force. You last 3 seconds. He blesses your bruised knuckles and gives you advice about hydration. You consider joining the monastery just for the workout plan. It all begins peacefully enough. A cluster of monks sits beneath an oak tree, sipping herbal tea and discussing the theological implications of crop rotation. Birds chirp, bees hum. Someone plays a lute badly. You almost feel relaxed. Then a monk slaps the table, shouts, "Next challenger," and everything changes. Brother Cedric, the head of this apparently swole monastic order, gestures for you to take the seat across from him. His face radiates serenity. His arms radiate danger. His robe sleeves are rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms that look like braided ropes. His sandals are humble. His grip is not. A novice monk stands beside the table holding a small brass gong. Another holds a prayer book in case things escalate. A third passes out small wafers, either for communion or blood sugar. You are not briefed. You sit across from Brother Cedric, palms sweating, spine rigid. He nods calmly, like a man preparing to walk you through a meditation, not physically dismantle your entire upper body. Then he clasps your hand and pins your elbow down in a single, smooth motion. The gong rings. The match begins. You push. Cedric does not. His eyes are tranquil. His expression does not change. You channel the strength of your ancestors, who survived plagues, famine, and poorly constructed shoes. Nothing happens. Cedric gently tells you to relax your shoulders and engage your core. You try, but everything is shaking, including your faith. Someone in the crowd starts chanting in Latin. Another begins humming what might be a funeral dirge. A small child whispers, "He's already gone," and hands you a flower. You're not sure if you're hallucinating, or if this is simply what the monastery does to people. 3 seconds later, your hand is slammed to the table with the quiet certainty of divine judgment. It is not painful. It is just decisive. You do not lose so much as you are informed. There is polite applause. Cedric smiles and praises your effort. He offers advice on wrist technique and invites you to visit the monastery bathhouse if your elbow swells. A younger monk places a damp cloth in your lap and silently offers you an apple. You take it, unsure if this is part of the ceremony or just pity fruit. Another villager steps up. He's massive, with suspiciously waxed forearms and a belt made from someone else's belt. He lasts 4 seconds. Cedric congratulates his breathing and then flattens the next 2 challengers in rapid succession. The gong is struck repeatedly. A candle is lit. No one is really sure why, but it feels right. You try to leave with dignity, but your arm no longer cooperates. You wave with your non-dominant hand and hum softly to keep from wincing. Cedric calls after you, reminding you that strength is temporary, but humility is eternal. You nod. You will reflect on that once the tingling stops. You pass 2 monks doing squats while balancing cabbages on their heads. Another monk is chanting psalms while lifting sacks of barley labelled "Training Weight Do Not Eat." Someone is using a wheelbarrow as a rowing machine. You begin to suspect this is less a monastery and more a medieval CrossFit cult in disguise. As you nurse your crushed knuckles and back away from the monk's table, the air fills with an excited murmur that feels less spiritual and more unhinged. Someone climbs onto a crate, clears their throat, and shouts a phrase that makes your stomach drop. "Release the chickens." Crates are opened. Hundreds of birds escape into the square. Children chase them. Adults chase the children. A chicken lands on your head. You accept this fate. Nobody remembers why the chickens were released. Nobody questions it. The sun is low. Shadows stretch across the field. A man in a feathered hat climbs onto a barrel and waves a large wooden spoon in the air like it's a sacred relic. You expect a speech. Instead, he yells again, louder, more urgent, like the fate of the kingdom depends on poultry. "Release the chickens," and it begins. A dozen crates burst open with the energy of cheap hinges and youthful overconfidence. Feathers explode. Clucks fill the air like battle cries in a feathery uprising. The birds pour out like someone tipped over a bucket of anxiety. You've never seen chaos move so fast or smell so strongly of coop. One chicken immediately darts into the mead tent and emerges with a pretzel in its beak. Another flaps wildly onto the roof of the blacksmith's shed and begins a victory lap. A third makes it all the way to the maypole and stares down at the crowd like a prophet with wings. No one tells you what to do. They never do. This is not a sport. It is an unspoken right. People simply react. Some scream, some chase, some simply stand still and pray. A man attempts to catch a chicken using a borrowed soup ladle. A child tries to barter with one using breadcrumbs and a shiny button. The chicken considers, then pecks his shoe and runs. A woman in formal robes attempts to herd a trio of hens with her parasol and a determined whisper. They ignore her completely. A monk stands very still, arms outstretched, waiting for one to come to him. It does. Then it poops on him and leaves. A dog joins in, not to help, just to feel involved. It herds 3 children and a juggler into a rain barrel. Someone claps. A musician starts playing frantic lute music. The chickens pick up speed. So does your pulse. A chicken lands on your head and begins shrieking. You do not remove it. You do not question it. You belong to this bird now. A woman bows. A man throws a handful of grain at your feet. You are possibly their new mayor. A wheel of cheese rolls through the scene like it's trying to escape this festival. 2 chickens chase it. A juggler trips over a bucket. The town baker screams, not in fear, but in what sounds like joy. A nobleman is cornered by 5 hens and attempts to bribe them with grapes. The town crier attempts to ring his bell and shout a warning, but is immediately tackled by 3 angry birds who appear to have unionized. A pig escapes from somewhere. No one knows where. A small goat joins the chase and headbutts a barrel. You make direct eye contact with a particularly unhinged rooster. It sees into your soul. You sidestep. It lunges anyway. You duck behind a hay bale. It vaults the hay bale. You flee across the square, shrieking softly. You dive, slip, and land in a barrel of molasses, feathers sticking to your face like nature's shame. Eventually a cowbell rings and someone shouts, "Enough! Just enough!" It's unclear who. The chickens scatter into alleyways, crawl under tables, and perch atop signs. A few strut into the church as if they've earned it. No one stops them. You wipe your face. Your sleeves are gone. Your dignity is missing. A child hands you a cup of soup and says, "Good effort." You nod. Your legs are scratched. Your arms are sticky. Your soul feels lightly fried. The games are done. People limp around smiling. A bard plays something emotional on a badly tuned lute. You share mead with a stranger and try to recall how many injuries you've collected. Someone points at your leg and asks, "Was that like that before?" You say yes. It was not. You sit on a barrel that is either slightly on fire or just naturally warm. You're too tired to care. Your knees are muddy. Your arm is sore. You are 90% bruises and 10% soup. The mead in your hand tastes like fermented apples and apology. It's perfect. Around you, the festival winds down like an overworked tavern wench slowly collapsing into a pile of hay. A man with a sprained ankle uses 2 fencing foils as makeshift crutches. The blacksmith is laughing so hard he's crying, possibly because he dislocated his shoulder trying to catch a pig. A noble woman is holding her petticoats together with twine. and eating a roasted onion with the solemn pride of a duchess who fell into a puddle and decided to pretend it was deliberate. The bard shifts into a slower tune. It sounds like heartbreak and goat hooves. People sway. Someone begins singing along in a language that may or may not exist. A group tries to clap along but quickly loses rhythm and descends into polite chaos. You glance down at your leg. There is a welt shaped like a chicken. You name it Henry. It begins to itch, and you decide that Henry is probably cursed. The chicken who gave it to you may still be watching, hidden in the shadows, plotting its final act of revenge. A stranger sits beside you and offers a piece of hard cheese wrapped in a cabbage leaf. You accept without question. You eat in silence. You are bonded now. Across the square, someone is trying to remove a ribbon from their hair and accidentally ties their sleeve to a tree branch. No one helps. We are all on our own journeys tonight. A group has gathered around a small campfire and are comparing wounds like scholars comparing scrolls. Someone lifts their shirt to reveal a hoof-shaped bruise the size of a turkey leg. Another shows off a perfectly circular welt from the sack race finish line. Everyone nods with respect. The town healer has set up a small station made from a broken wheelbarrow and a pile of mint leaves. He applies honey to a scraped elbow and murmurs something about humours and celestial alignment. His assistant, a child with a basket of bandages and no sense of direction, wraps your arm and half your ear before scampering off into the dusk like a tiny chaotic moth. You watch the stars begin to emerge. First one, then three, then a sky full of tiny witnesses to your survival. The wind carries the scent of burned sugar, mead breath, distant poultry, and something that might once have been a pie. Somewhere behind you, someone is snoring under a table. A pair of lovers are slow dancing beside the maypole, which still has a chicken perched on top like a feathered gargoyle guarding the secrets of the festival. You sip your mead and feel your muscles begin to stiffen. Your adrenaline fades. Your body takes slow inventory of everything it endured today. You ache in places that do not appear on any medieval anatomy chart. And yet, you are proud. You made it. You survived the wrestling, the archery, the airborne cheese, the monk's arm, the goat, and the final poultry storm. Tomorrow will be full of questions. Why are your shoes in a tree? Why does your voice sound like you ate gravel? Who bit the jester? But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight is about bruised joy and borrowed cloaks. It is about quiet companionship and half-wrapped ankles, and possibly finding a clean blanket. Someone beside you raises a mug and shouts to survival. Everyone cheers. A chicken clucks softly in agreement. The torches dim. The music slows. The crowd begins to settle into sleep or something like it. The mead is finished. The bruises are permanent. And now, as the fires fade, it is time to say good night. You've earned it.